Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Hip Senior Podcast, Book Edition. And in this one, we are talking to Christine Luken about financial dignity after divorce, which is personally my favorite book of hers, having gone through a divorce and had a lot of financial issues while I was married with my ex-husband, which is, from what I understand, right, that one of the leading causes of divorce is money, right, Christine? Welcome
Yeah.
to the podcast.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Yes. Money remains one of the top issues that people cite for the reason for their divorce.
It's
So,
It's awful because it doesn't have to be, right? They could be going and buying any of your books and getting help out of this, right? Especially like Money is Emotional, which is also on our page. But
yes.
but if you do get to that point and you are divorced, what is this book about? What
Yeah.
how did you come up with this? It's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I coach a lot of women who are going through and coming out of divorce. And as we know, divorce is a very emotional time. If you look at like what are the most stressful life events that people can go through, it is typically the death of a spouse or child, and then divorce is usually right behind it.
Wow.
It is one of the most stressful life events that people can go through. Because if you think about it, it's like the death of your relationship,
Yeah.
right? And so we go through a lot of the same emotions that we would go through if we were grieving the physical loss of a person.
Yeah, mourning was just on the tip of my tongue for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's important to be conscious of, what are those stages of grief? What does that look like? What kinds of emotions come up? Because, as I talk about in Money is Emotional, that our emotions can cause us to take action or they can cause us to avoid taking action, um, typically because we're trying to avoid some type of displeasure. And so, really understanding those stages of what we're going through emotionally can really help us to see what potential landmines we might run into when it
Right.
comes to our finances is really super important. And then you've got this whole other factor of if you're somebody who is exiting a relationship and your spouse handled the majority of the money, then it's almost like I say that money's like the third person in your relationship. And so the problem is when you leave the marriage, you and money are still together because every single day you're interacting with money, right? You're earning money, you're spending money, you're managing your money. And if you never really had a relationship with money because your spouse handled everything, it can almost feel like you and money are sitting on opposite ends of the couch. Like, I don't even know what to do with you. Right. And so it's really important to, start examining your relationship with money because you and money are going to be together forever. And what do we need to do to improve it? Sometimes it is getting the practical knowledge of how to manage your day-to-day finances,
Right.
but often there can be emotional scars from the marriage. I mean, if you were in a relationship with someone who used money to control you or who, you know restricted your access to financial resources,
How
that
about if
that
they
causes
abused that
trauma.
money?
Yeah.
Like my ex was I never knew where our money went. It was just always gone.
Yeah.
It was just always gone. And I would look at the bank statements. I could never see like, where it went, like as far as, like it's just gone. You talked about the emotional damage after a divorce with
Yeah.
money and whatever. What if your emotional status for many of us is like every day is a party because you got divorced? True
Well, and
story.
for some people, I mean, honestly, for some people, it is a relief. And, I went through what I call an almost divorce because I almost got married to the wrong guy. And, know the feeling because, it was a relief to get out of that relationship. But I also made mistakes as far as I was so eager to leave that I did things with my finances that really weren't healthy for me in the long run because I was just like, oh, whatever, take this. Like, I'm not worried about this. Like, don't bother, helping me to pay X because, I just don't
I
want to
just
deal with you
wash my hands
anymore.
of you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's a whole variety of mistakes that we can make as we're moving through divorce because, we're either angry or we're avoidant or we just feel anxious and paralyzed. And just being more aware of our emotional state and how it affects our finances can be so valuable. But then it's like, all right, well, once the dust has settled, how can we create that good solid foundation to build for the future? Because that's the important thing.
Yeah. I guess when I was getting ready to get divorced, I didn't think, like you said, I was just ready to be done with him. I was,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care, like I lost a house in the divorce, like literally foreclosed on a house
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I didn't like think clearly enough and didn't talk to somebody or read a book and say, what are going to be the long-term ramifications if I go this route and just
Right.
wash my hands and don't adult up and say, hey, I need to talk to somebody and make sure that I'm looking forward my future. Because there's so
Yeah.
many people that, especially when they're younger and get divorced, I was 45, but if you get divorced and you're, 30,
Mm-hmm.
you don't think of those things. You don't care what your credit score is in the future, which, it's just, you just think, I just want
Yeah.
away.
Right. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
thank you so much for writing such an inspirational book and
You're
for being
welcome.
the voice of people during a difficult time and helping
Yeah.
them learn through that process.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely an honor to help people come through that process to the other side.
What is the one thing, and I'll always ask you this at the end of books, what is the one thing that you want people, if they only had one thought when they put down your book? And I'm sure they're going to have a million thoughts,
Yeah.
but if they only had one thought, what is that one thought you want them to think?
Money and I are going to be together forever. So what am I going to do about that today?
I love that. Christine, thank you so much for talking about financial dignity after divorce with us. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me on.
All right. Bye bye.